Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk about the NTP-NTJ combination. This is in direct relationship with the other video that I had was ENTJ and INTP problem. However, I'm going to talk from an angle of the entire compass of the NTJs and the NTPs. When you have the four-letter functional stack or the four-letter combination, INTJ and ENTJ, if it's a three-letter suffix, the NTJ, you're gonna naturally be very close to the extroverted or introverted opposite of you. So, if you're an ENTJ, you'll naturally connect to the INTJ because your languages are very similar. Just a little bit of flipping in your functional stack, so a little bit of difference there. But ultimately, it is very close. Same with the NTPs. ENTPs naturally are going to understand INTPs a lot better than they're going to understand the other type, the NTJs. They're all rationals. They're intuitive thinkers, so naturally they're going to think about intuitive, deep topics, and they're going to use thinking to process and make judgments. That's normal. That's part of that process. But the J and the P is so magnificent of a change and so magnificent of so grand of a difference between the NTJ and the NTP. They have totally opposite functions. So there's nothing similar between the two, other than the fact that the INTP and the ENTJ process information in the same manner, which means they move through thinking, intuition, and then sensing, and then your last feeling. And likewise for the NTP and the INTJ. So, but with that being said, they're total opposites in their functions. They share none of the similar functions. There's nothing similar between the two, so they're pretty easy to distinguish from each other. So the P is not. That's why online tests are stupid, because if you take an online test, it's going to say, "Are you an introvert or are you an extrovert?" You click I, many introverted things, it's going to say you're an I. And then if you click, "Are you an intuitive or are you an sensor?" And then you click many sensing things, is going to say S. Okay, there's a difference between introverted sensing and extroverted sensing. There's a difference between introverted intuition and extroverted intuition. There is a difference between, and I'm not going to go through the list. Okay, so you get the point that the tests are not going to be reasonable or reliable enough for you to really know your type. I'm telling you, if you know your type, you're going to feel much more free in why you do things. So it's important that you understand your type in full. And I'm kind of changing gears here, and I don't mean to. So let me get back to the point. The point is that if you are understanding the difference between the NTJ and the NTP, then you're already ahead. The P does not mean that all INTPs and ENTPs show up late for appointments because they don't care about punctuality or they don't complete tasks on time or they don't. That is ridiculous. Okay? P does not mean lazy. It means they're perceiving functions. That's their first extroverted function, is a perceiving function. INTP's first extroverted function is extroverted intuition, and it's the same with the ENTP. Their first extroverted function is extroverted intuition. Okay, so with that being said, these types can easily get along or they can easily fall apart depending on who, the level of maturity, the level of temperament, the value system, what they're going for, why they're going for it, and then a mutual understanding of each type. The NTPs are analysts. They want to analyze. The NTJs want to win. That's a major difference, and that's how you can almost instantly recognize that. NTJs are results seeking. Above all else, it's results, 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 results. NTPs will naturally want to accomplish or achieve something like any normal human being, but it's more about the truth, analysis, getting to the bottom. So the easiest way to recognize the difference between an ENTP and an ENTJ, I think, is an ENTP is going to look at things from 100 different angles and keep alive the possibility that two contradictory things may be true. This is why ENTPs are called the lawyer types. They can almost change the truth in front of your face, and then you're like, whoa. ENTPs are quick. They're very fast. They're seeing holes in arguments faster than any other type. They're called the debaters for that reason. They're very witty, very, very witty. They're very quick. ENTPs are, I think they're underrated. They should be much more respected. Their ability to be able to do that allows them to see things from an angle that most types can't. ENTPs are often entrepreneurs. They don't fit in a corporate environment very well for the sole fact that they see things differently than their superior and then their boss or their overseer or supervisor or their owner or whoever is in charge of them. If they worked for a corporation, they see things differently. And a lot of times the STs that are in business are unable to see those possibilities as actually having potential. That's where they struggle with the ST types. The NTs struggle with that, mainly the NTPs more than the ENTJs, or the NTJs, I'm sorry, because the NTPs, STJs will typically look at them, and sometimes NTJs will look at them as all over the place, not goal adhering, kind of just scattered maybe, and thinking of too many possibilities without executing a result. But what they fail to realize is the NTP is actually studying the details for analysis, studying the truth, studying the facts, and juggling two different facts at one time that may be completely contradictory to each other. And that's where all of a sudden they'll be just doing something, and then the result is actually producing. It's generating a result. It's just not a tangible result, as in you can't see it. But there's a lot going on inside the NTP's head that most people aren't able to recognize. That extroverted intuition is greatly misunderstood. It's greatly unseen, in the sense of they're perceiving so many things at once, and they're seeing what could possibly be true or what could possibly be, and they get excited about the possibilities. And STs typically will shut them down because it seems unrealistic or may not have been proven necessarily. But it doesn't mean that they don't get along with STs. It can happen. But ENTPs are very entrepreneurial, so naturally they're going to have to set goals, and they do accomplish whatever they put their minds to. ENTPs are a little more accepting of inefficiency. They think there's always, well, I say they as they're all the same, but they're not. They typically see what an NTJ would see as wasting time. An ENTP would humor it a little more, in the sense of maybe this person's accomplishing something. What are they thinking? So they're more likely to give people a chance than NTJs. They don't make judgments as quick, and in the sense of efficiency. Like an NTJ will go, that's not efficient. What the hell is that person doing? An NTP, on the other hand, leaves things a little more open-ended and tries to understand that maybe this person is efficient. When an NTJ is looking at them and making a judgment, this person is not efficient. And an NTP goes, they're efficient, but they're not efficient. Okay, so that's that contradictory floating double truth that NTPs like to humor and NTJs don't. NTJs will say, you can't be both, you're either one or the other. So, with that being said, you start to see the differences pretty quick between an NTP and an NTJ. NTPs also are a little more quirky. They're going to have that extroverted intuition, so they seem a little more random, they're a little more sporadic, they're very creative. They're seen as a lot more creative than NTJs. That's why NTPs are the ones that come out with really cool new stuff, and NTJs are the ones that refine something. They take something and make it better. NTPs just come out with a new crazy invention, like a teleportation hat you wear, and it takes you back to the 15th century. And NTJs will make it to where it can take you back to the 10th century, the 4th century, or whatever else. They'll improve it. NTJs usually need some kind of spark before they can come up with something grand and new. It's not impossible, it's just not as likely, because they're not looking at possibilities in the moment, they're looking at outcomes. NTJs are very driven for the future outcome. They're not so much driven for the possibility of the very moment. You take something and making it new, NTJs like to refine and they're very deliberate and very focused on a particular outcome. That's what that extroverted thinking does. When you look at an NTP, they're introverted thinkers. So it's a little different. Extroverted thinking is very goal-oriented, it's efficient. NTJs are always looking for efficiency. When you hear someone say, you could have done that this way, 10 times better, 10 times faster, that's an NTJ type of thing. There's a much more efficient way to do this. You're wasting a lot of time. They have intolerance for inefficiency. For example, if you're on software and you're working on something, an NTJ is going to look at that and get irritated with your slowness because you're going through 10 steps that seemingly are unnecessary when you could have done it this way. So an NTJ on a computer was more likely to use hotkeys and things that are faster So if they know the hotkey, they're going to do that versus going through the menu and finding this and then going through the sub menu and then going through that process. And not that either way is better, but NTJs are very obsessed with efficiency. While an ENTP, will look at why the person's going through that, or an NTP in general, and try to understand, okay, well, maybe there's a reason why this person's doing this, and look at that possibility, not necessarily judging if that person's inefficient or not. With that being said, NTJs are seemingly more asshole-ish, and there's reasons for that. We're efficiency people, and really NTJs, especially ENTJs, they're focused on developing people. INTJs not so much. ENTJs really want to develop people. They root for the underdog. That's typically the angle they want to go for. ENTJs just do it with harsh standards. It's like it's this way or no way, this way or no way, and that's it. And so that's where a lot of people don't understand the ENTJ. They think it's malicious. It's like, I'm going to go out of my way to be a dick. And no, it's just there's a standard that they uphold, and then they want to move people forward. And so I think a lot of credit is not given to ENTJs and ENTPs, as well as INTJs and INTPs. NTPs, amazing analyst. They break things down to a level that no NTJ does, in the sense of really understanding what makes it the way it is. So if you look at it from this angle, an NTJ, especially an ENTJ, extroverted thinking dominant, is going to take a fact and use the fact. And they really don't care to dissect it, because the fact is all that's important. For example, we're almost like mockingbirds. I like to say that, but it's thought out more than that. But I'm going to make fun of our type for a second. ENTJs will hear a fact. We may not necessarily even explore the fact. So someone says, this is how you say whatever in French. Okay, this is how you say something in French, right? And with that being said, an ENTJ will just remember it, and maybe they'll go research it. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll say, oh, that's how you say it, or sure. Okay, yeah, and they'll take it, and then they'll use it. And come to find out that someone like an NTP has already studied every aspect of the language and goes, you pronounced that wrong. And the NTJ goes, what? No, I didn't. What are you talking about? And NTP will say, yeah, you did, because I speak French, and I studied it, and I did this. And NTJ goes, damn, okay, this guy knows French, and then we'll have to secede. At that point, an NTJ doesn't like losing, so we're going to go study it hardcore. So something sparked us into go learn it because we screwed up, and we don't like making the same mistake twice. The ultimate point is that we'll use facts that are not necessarily even true if we hear it, and we'll use it and we'll spitball it right back out. It's almost like a memory that captures facts, and then we use it because you got to look at the motive. What's the motive? Well, we want to get to the end as fast as possible. It's not about getting into the deductive reasoning and breaking something down to get to the conclusion. I mean, we will if that's the way to win, but ultimately it's using the fact as to get there. So it's like, I don't care about the road behind me, if it's built or it falls apart, as long as I'm getting to the end. And so that's what the NTPs are for. Because if an NTJ can back off and actually seek the counsel of an NTP, and vice versa, now both types are needed, and I'll explain why. So they can seek the facts of the NTP and seek the counsel of the NTP and go, I'm going to move forward. And I don't care what you say, I'm still going to move forward. But I want to move forward in the best way possible so that people can come behind me and the road doesn't fall apart. What material do I use? Okay? And instead of saying, I don't care what it takes, I'm still going to move forward, and if I use the crappiest material, that's kind of an egotistical thing. So an NTJ needs to learn that there's better ways and better things to do in the process of moving forward, and not to skip some of those details. On the other hand, NTPs will focus so much on the details, not always, but frequently, that they don't ever move forward. They're especially INTPs. So they're so focused on getting the right material to make everything new that it makes it to where they're much slower in the process. So that's why we have to understand that every type is important. There's not a single type that's not needed in this world. There's areas of every single type that are extremely crucial that we need to be able to develop and understand and tap into that raw potential. So now that we understand NTJs and NTPs, let's look at their dynamic. Okay, so NTJs and NTPs, there's two ways this can go. It can go south or really well, really fast, okay? Because they're NTs, they share that in common, intuitive thinkers. What it takes is a drop in the ego to really get along with your mirror type, ENTJ, INTP, and I call it mirror because it's a reciprocal. They share the same order, but it's completely introverted versus extroverted, okay? So as the ENTJ is an extroverted thinker, the INTP is an introverted thinker, and then they go into intuition, opposites obviously, sensing, and then feeling. So it takes a drop in ego. ENTJs need to learn to shut up. INTPs need to learn to stop thinking the ENTJ is full of shit. And they really need to sit back and listen to what the ENTJ is trying to accomplish, because that's what the ENTJ wants to do, wants to accomplish something. It's not about proving you wrong, it's about getting something done. So even if the ENTJ is wrong, if an INTP approaches it and says, look, I know you want to move forward, you're moving fast, I don't want to slow you down, but I think it might be better if you try this, here's why. And an ENTJ who has less of an ego or humbled themselves just enough to listen to that may actually have a better result than if they didn't. ENTJs are always going to act like they know the best way, but the truth is we all make mistakes. We're just confident in what we don't even know. Naturally, by being an ENTJ, we're just going to be confident in something that we're not even fully aware of the possibility. We're not even fully aware of what it is. You know, like, this is some kind of mix of, I don't know, some kind of B12. And I can, in about 5 minutes of studying this, I'm going to be extremely confident in telling you about it. I'll sound confident, but even though I know, like, hey, you know, there's a lot more to learn about this crap. I didn't study it, so I have nothing to say, but it's a confidence that comes off because, again, it's about being efficient. If I want to convince you that this is good stuff, I'm going to find all the deep facts that prove that it's good stuff. It's not about, is it really good stuff or not? It's just, I want you to buy this stuff, so I'm going to find all the facts that support the conclusion of you buying this crap. Now, and then the NTP comes in the picture and goes, you know that stuff really doesn't work, right? And I'll explain why. And NTJ has to sit back and go, okay, explain it to me. Instead of going, yeah, it does. Which naturally NTJs don't want to be wrong. So that's where our problem is. So ultimately, you've got to look at it from that perspective. You've got to humble yourself. Every type can get along with every type. It just takes a lot of work, some types more than others. Like naturally, an immature NTJ can get along with another immature NTJ pretty well. An immature NTP will not get along with an immature NTJ very well. There's too many differences. The NTP will see the NTJ as controlling, too objective-oriented, too achievement-focused, too extroverted in the sense of manipulating their environment, too focused on material and success, and the NTJ will see the NTP as wasting time and inefficient. And it's not that case. There's a lot of results and things that both parties accomplish. So to override my old video, which was ENTJ and INTP, ultimately you have to understand that they do get along if both parties are mature. There's not problems with the relationship. In fact, I think an INTP is one of the greatest types for an ENTJ to have any kind of relationship with, because they stimulate thinking on a level that none of the functions that ENTJ has. So they're going to make an ENTJ think in a different way, and vice versa. An ENTJ can take an INTP and push them forward. And an INTP may be fine, sitting in a chair and daydreaming about the theory of relativity and coming up with a brand new theory and do nothing with it. An ENTJ will be the person, and let's say a romantic relationship, an ENTJ will be a person who says, look, you're brilliant. You've got these profound ideas. Nobody knows about them. We need to get this out in the marketplace, and we need to let people know this truth. We need to tell people about this. Let's get a business going. Let's talk. Let's spread the word. Let's get something going to get your knowledge, and you spent your life researching this. Let's get it out there. INTP can be pushed by the ENTJ in that way, and vice versa. The ENTJ may be so hard-headed and so focused on this achievement that the INTP can go, look, you've spent 40 hours doing this. You spent 40 hours doing this, but if you use this framework instead of that framework, then naturally you're going to have this better result because you're using the wrong platform. So that's where that's where NTJs and NTPs can actually get along really, really well, but it requires a level of humility. And that's tough, especially ENTJs, because we think we're awesome. And but really, there is no type that's better than any other type. I like to joke about it, but truthfully, as I move forward in this process, I'm trying to understand each type, what types I get along with, and what types I'm struggling with, and why. Because if I struggle with a particular type, and I'm going to mention it right now, I struggle with SFJs. It's trying to understand SFJs that's a challenge, but the problem is not with them, it's with me, which means that there's something wrong with the way that I process information that doesn't allow me to understand SFJs, because if they were really that bad, no one would want to talk to SFJs. But they're not. There's a lot of people, a lot of types that get along with SFJs. So what is it about my thinking that allows SFJs to irritate me so much? Okay, so those are areas that you have to recognize. And with NTPs, you also have a rival type. So it's just getting to that understanding why these types you have to understand your maturity, you have to understand your cognitive processes, and getting down and breaking down of these two totally different types. So the NTJ and the NTP are very, very different. They are mistyped as each other a lot, but there's quite a difference between the two. ENTJs specifically will judge before someone finishes a sentence. As you're talking, and you may start the sentence off with, I think this particular fact. And as they are talking, an ENTJ almost instantly makes a judgment before their introverted intuition kicks in. And because their introverted intuition, their NI function, is an auxiliary function, it is controllable, but it's not always active. Which means if an ENTJ doesn't want to think about it, they're not going to think about it. An INTJ will process first, then think, and then judge. They may judge 4 hours later. They may come back to you and say, I was thinking about what you said. On the other hand, an ENTJ will be like, no, that's stupid. Nope, stupid. I don't want to hear it. And so ENTJs are they're more likely to be abrupt. And they're not going to process very quickly. Then 4 hours later, an ENTJ may come back to you and go, well, they may not come back to you because they're arrogant naturally, but they may go, you know what, I was wrong about that. I'm going to fix that. So, but they had to think about it. Maybe they wanted to think about it more. Maybe they chose to use their NI and say, you know what, that really was more, because they don't perceive first. INTJs perceive first. And it's the same with an INTP and the ENTP. And the INTP is going to take a fact, and they have to logically break it down first. Then they make a judgment. So if they hear something that isn't consistent, they're going to judge immediately. They're going to say, boom, there's my judgment. But they're not going to say anything because they're introverted thinkers. They don't care about changing your mind typically. Unless you cross them, then they're going to say something. And then when they say it, they're going to take you down because it's well thought out. So that's kind of the major differences between these two. So really break that down and understand that. There is a massive difference between the two. And NTPs, again, you're going to see, I can go on and on about this. So just take my word for it. I might make another video specifically about ENTPs and ENTJs and the differences, but this is the NTP segment where there is a difference between the two suffixes of the rationals. Anyway, till next time.